There is a sentence the internet loves to put in Carl Jung's mouth. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life. And you will call it fate. It's on posters, it's in a million captions. It has been shared more times than most things the man actually wrote. There's a problem. That isn't the sentence Jung wrote. What he wrote is stranger and better. When an inner situation is not made conscious, it happens outside, as fate. Ion. Volume 9, Part 2, Paragraph 126. The internet took that sentence and sanded it into a poster. This is a channel about checking. So tonight, we do to Carl Jung what we did to the goldfish and the Yale study and the willpower battery. Not to bury him, to audit him. 5 case files, 5 things he described before anyone could measure them. And at the end, a ledger of what survived. Open the file. Jung had a name for the parts of yourself you refused to look at. The shadow. The claim was precise. What you disown does not disappear, it operates. Modern procrastination research arrived at a narrower, testable version of the problem. Avoidance can function as short-term mood repair. You are not managing a schedule, you are managing a feeling. Case file number 1. Why the thing you most want to do is the thing you cannot start. It's past 11. The one task that actually matters is still sitting there, untouched, and you know it. You meant to start hours ago. Instead, you're here, in the dark, replaying it, and somehow that feels safer than simply beginning. Here's the part that catches people out. It isn't the hard tasks we run from, it's the ones that matter. The important thing sits closest to the person you're trying to become, and that is exactly why the mind keeps easing away from it. Because procrastination isn't laziness. It's the mind protecting you from a feeling, and it will keep you circling half the night to avoid it. Tonight, I'll show you exactly which feeling that is, and how to break the loop it runs on. But before any of that, be honest with yourself for a second. There's one task, isn't there? The one you keep coming back to, and quietly sliding away from. Name it, in your own head, right now. Hold it there. We're going to come back to it. So, the task you're holding. Notice it isn't the hardest thing on your list. It's the thing that would mean the most. And that's the clue. Because the task that matters carries a quiet risk the others don't. If you really try, and it isn't good enough, then maybe you aren't either. That's the feeling you've been avoiding, not the work, the verdict. So your mind makes you an offer. Don't start, and you never have to find out. The task stays perfect in your head, untested, still full of promise. The moment you begin, it becomes real and fallible. So you take the safer road. Not now, later, when I'm ready. It feels like patience. It's protection. You're guarding the idea of yourself by never putting it to the test. But here's what the trade never mentions. Every time you protect the idea by avoiding the task, you also confirm the fear, a little. The knot pulls tighter, the task grows heavier, and the story hardens. I'm just not the kind of person who does this. Look back through anyone's avoidance, and it's never laziness in the file. It's a person quietly protecting something they care about by refusing to risk it. So if the fear needs a verdict to fire, take the verdict away. You do that by making the first step too small to mean anything. You're not writing the report. You're opening the document and typing one line. You're not going for the run. You're putting your shoes by the door. Shrink it until there's nothing left to be afraid of. And don't wait to feel ready. You won't. Ready is what arrives after you start, never before. So decide it the night before, plainly. When I sit down at 9, I open the file and write one sentence. Not to finish, just to begin. Because beginning was the only part the fear was ever guarding. And here's what no one warns you about. The moment you start, the nagging stops. The task that felt so heavy becomes just a thing you're doing. And the relief you chased all night in every scroll and snack and later, it was on the other side of beginning the whole time. The task was never the problem. The feeling was. And the way through was never to beat it, but to slip beneath it, one small beginning at a time. So, that task you named back at the start? Try it tomorrow. Just the first 2 minutes, decided the night before. Then come back and tell me, did it feel different? Or did the feeling still win? I read every one. Next time, we'll look at why the brain fights those first 2 minutes so hard, and how to make them almost automatic. In his Zurich lectures, Jung pictured consciousness as a small island in a much larger sea, and warned against asking the will to hold the whole coastline. Modern psychology built a tidier story. Willpower as a battery, draining with use. It became one of the most famous findings in the field. Then, 23 laboratories ran it again, pre-registered, together. The effect came back at almost exactly 0. Jung's caution is compatible with that. The battery is not. Case file number 2, the machine that will not start at 6 p.m. It's 6 p.m. The gym bag is by the door. You packed it this morning, back when you were somebody else. All day you spent it, not on anything big, on choosing a sandwich, on writing one polite email 4 times, on 70 small decisions nobody will remember, including you. And now the machine won't start. Not broken, drained. This is bug report number 2, willpower. Let's open the file. The standard diagnosis is character. Strong people push through, weak people fold. Which is why you keep buying discipline the way you kept buying planners. The research tells a stranger story. In the lab, people made to resist a plate of cookies gave up faster on the next hard task. Self-control started to look less like a virtue and more like a consumable. Psychologists called it ego depletion. Willpower behaving like a battery that drains with use. It became one of the most famous findings in the field. Remember that word, famous. It matters later. Under the hood, every act of self-control runs on the same executive circuit. The machinery that overrides the easy option. Override your snooze button, your temper, your snack, your tabs. Same circuit. Same budget. That's why the failures cluster at night. Morning you spends the budget, evening you inherits the overdraft. The diet doesn't break at breakfast, it breaks at 9 p.m. in front of the fridge. Every time. And choice itself is a cost, even when the options are trivial. In one famous study, judges granted parole most often right after their breaks, and less as the session wore on. Researchers still argue over that finding, but the shape of it is familiar to anyone who has ever ordered takeout at 6 p.m. Now the part nobody expects. The reason famous mattered. When the depletion experiments were rerun at scale, the effect kept shrinking. Sometimes it vanished. The battery, the famous battery, started to look partly imaginary. Then the stranger finding. People who believe willpower is strictly limited deplete on schedule. People who don't deplete later or barely at all. The battery is real as an experience, but its capacity listens to what you believe about it, which makes willpower a very unusual machine, one whose specifications are partly written by its own user manual. 3 patches. Patch 1. Stop spending. The best self-controllers in the data don't resist temptation harder. They arrange their lives to meet less of it. Fewer overrides, fewer drains. Design beats discipline. Patch 2. Decide once. A rule spends nothing. I don't check email before 9 costs 1 decision, ever. A daily choice bills you every single day. Convert repeated choices into standing rules, and the leak stops. Patch 3. Audit the gauge. Sometimes I'm out of willpower is a reading. Sometimes it's the gauge writing the reading. You don't have to lie to yourself, just stop volunteering the surrender. One more thing. This episode ran a technique on you while it taught you 3 others. Early on I told you to remember a word, and your mind held that loop open for over a minute until it paid off. That pull you felt? The same open loop mechanism your apps use on you every day. If you noticed it before this sentence, your detector is coming online. Log the timestamp in the comments. First correct catch gets pinned to the case file. The bug was never weakness. It was a budget you spent invisibly on a machine that partly believes its own fuel gauge. Spend less, decide once, and read the gauge. Don't let it read you. This has been the human pattern. Bug report number 3 is already in the queue. Enroll, and it files itself. Jung borrowed a term from the anthropologist Levi Bruhl for a state in which the boundary between you and what surrounds you becomes psychologically blurred. Participation mystique. He could describe the feeling. He could not show you the machinery. We can. Your attention can be priced in less time than it takes you to blink. Case file number 3. The auction you didn't know you were hosting. While you read this sentence, somewhere a machine held an auction. The prize was the next 10 seconds of your attention. The bidding took about 1/10 of a second. You weren't invited. This is not a metaphor. Every time a page loads, an auction runs. Advertisers bidding in real time for the slot in front of your eyes. Your attention is inventory. It has a spot price. And here's the part nobody tells you. The machine only wins because something inside you keeps raising its hand. Bug report number 3. Attention. Let's open the file. The standard diagnosis. You have the attention span of a goldfish. 8 seconds. You've heard the number. Here's where it comes from. A 2015 marketing report citing a website that cited nothing. No study. No data. The goldfish, meanwhile, is what scientists use to study memory, because goldfish remember things for months. Both halves of the most quoted attention statistic on Earth are made up. The real number is worse and honest. Researchers who log actual screen behavior found the average unbroken stretch on one screen fell from about 2.5 minutes in 2004 to about 47 seconds now. Not because your brain shrank, because the auction got faster. Under the hood there are 2 auctions running. The outer one is commercial, real-time bidding, 100 milliseconds, done. The inner one is neural, and it's rigged the same way. Your brain runs a continuous auction for what gets awareness next. Novelty bids, motion bids, threat bids, and unpredictability bids highest of all, because your reward circuitry doesn't fire for the reward, it fires for the maybe. That's prediction error. The spike lives in the uncertainty, not the payoff. Which is why the pull to refresh gesture is a slot machine lever. Same reinforcement schedule, variable, unpredictable, occasionally wonderful. A schedule discovered in pigeons, now running on 2 billion phones. And every time a check pays off, one good message out of 20, the auction learns your reserve price. Each capture trains the next one. The loop tightens itself. Now the famous part, and the reason famous keeps mattering on this channel. You've heard that your phone drains your brain just by lying on the desk. Mere presence. Big 2017 study, everywhere ever since. When an independent lab reran it, the effect didn't show up. That doesn't make the study fraud. It makes the confident version of the claim bigger than the evidence. And if you think about it, that's better news. Your phone is not a radiator leaking your IQ across the desk. It's a bidder. It can only win an auction when a cue fires, a buzz, a badge, a glance that becomes a check. Which means the game isn't willpower against a magic object, it's cue management against a bidding system. And cues, unlike willpower, are physical. You can reach them. Patch 1. Schedule the auction. In a randomized field experiment, people whose notifications arrived batched 3 times a day felt more attentive, more in control, less stressed. But the group that silenced everything got more anxious, not less. The fix isn't silence, it's predictability. Let the bids in, on your schedule. Patch 2. Pay the residue tax once. When you switch tasks, part of your attention stays behind with the unfinished one. In experiments, 30 seconds of writing down where you stopped and what happens next, a ready-to-resume note, released the residue. Close the file before you open the next one. Patch 3. Raise the bid price. The most reliable finding in behavioral economics is that defaults win. So change the default. Off the wrist, off the home screen, out of the room for the hours that matter. Not forever. The point isn't exile. The point is that a bidder who has to walk upstairs usually doesn't bid. One more thing. The first 12 seconds of this episode were a bid. No words, rising sound, one blinking light. Engineered salience, the exact auction move this episode just taught you to catch. If you felt yourself lean in before I said a word, your detector is coming online. Log the timestamp of the moment this episode brought your attention. Closest catch gets pinned to the case file. The bug was never a shrinking attention span. That number was never real. It's an auction you didn't know you were hosting, run by a system that learned your prices. Set the schedule, close the files, raise the bids. The house doesn't have to win. This has been the human pattern. Bug report number 4 is already in the queue. Motivation, and why waiting for it is the bug. Enroll, and it files itself. Jung wrote that the greatest problems of life are never solved, only outgrown. It sounds like resignation. Read it again. It is an instruction about where to put your attention. And 2 separate bodies of research point the same way. Vividly fantasizing the outcome measurably lowers your energy for it. Contrasting the wish against the obstacle and planning for that obstacle is what moves people. Not the same discovery, a convergence. Case file number 4. The motivation that isn't coming, and why that is good news. Today is the day you finally feel like it. That's the plan. Wait for the wave, then move. Here's the bug. The wave isn't scheduled. You're waiting at a stop no bus serves. And you've been told the problem is fuel, that some people wake up with a full tank and you didn't. That story sells a lot of morning routines. It just isn't how the machine works. Bug report number 4, motivation. Let's open the file. First, the industry's favorite receipt. Yale, 1953. 3% of the class wrote down their goals, and 20 years later, they'd out-earned the other 97% combined. You've heard it in seminars, books, graduation speeches. In 1996, reporters went looking for the study. Then Yale went looking. There is no study. It was never conducted. The most quoted motivation statistic on Earth is an empty folder. To be fair to the science it impersonates, written goals do help. That part has real research. The magic number was invented, and the folk model underneath is worse. I'll act when I feel motivated treats motivation like weather, something that arrives. So you check the sky is empty, and the day gets filed under lazy. That word is a misdiagnosis too. Here's what the gauge is actually measuring. The system that generates drive doesn't pay out for waiting. It's the same anticipation circuit you met in the auction file. It fires on approach, on cues, on nearness, on the maybe, which means the pull you're waiting for is mostly generated by motion toward the thing. The feeling isn't the fuel, it's the exhaust. This isn't a slogan. In clinical trials, the arrow got tested directly. People scheduled action first, small, concrete, calendar-level action, and the feeling followed. Doing changed mood more reliably than waiting for mood changed doing. One more speck, pull decays with distance. A reward next Tuesday tugs at a fraction of a reward in the next 10 minutes. Your deadline isn't uninspiring because you're broken, it's far away, and far is quiet. Now the famous part. The single most recommended technique in self-help. Close your eyes and see yourself succeeding. Feel the finish line. There's a lab that actually measured what happens next, and in her experiments, the more vividly people fantasized the win, the more their blood pressure dropped, the body powering down. Weeks later, the vivid fantasizers had applied less, achieved less, recovered slower. The leading read, a detailed enough preview gets treated a little like the real thing. You attended the premiere, so some of the urgency got spent. To be precise about the boundary, this is one research program, and expecting success is fine. It's the highlight reel fantasy, minus the obstacle, that sedates. Which is exactly why the same lab's fix works. Patch 1. Contrast. Don't fantasize. Picture the win for a moment, then immediately picture the obstacle standing in front of it, and write the plan for that obstacle. In randomized trials, this flipped imagination from sedative back into engine. The obstacle card is the one that does the work. Patch 2. Decide the trigger, not the act. If it's 7 a.m. and the kettle's on, then the laptop opens. Across 94 studies, if-then plans moved goal completion by one of the largest margins in the field, because they take the starting decision away from the part of you that was waiting to feel like it. Patch 3. Start smaller than your pride wants. Minutes, not sessions. The trials from earlier point one direction. The feeling follows the first rep. You don't need to want the whole workout. You need to want the shoes. One more thing. This file didn't open with a promise. It opened with a removal. Motivation isn't coming, is loss framing. A threat of absence outbids an offer of gain, and the previous episode's end card planted it days before you clicked. If you felt the pull of something being taken away, that was the lever, and now you own it. Log the timestamp where you first noticed this episode had you. Closest catch gets pinned to the case file. The bug was never an empty tank. It's a gauge that reads backwards. The feeling you're waiting for is downstream of the thing you're not doing. contrast the wish. Rig the trigger, take the rep. The bus isn't coming, and that's good news. You were never a passenger. This has been the human pattern. Bug report number 5 is already in the queue: procrastination, and why lazy was never the diagnosis. Enroll, and it files itself. Jung used an older phrase for a diminution of personality, loss of soul. It is not a clinical diagnosis, and it is not anhedonia. But he was circling a human experience that modern psychology later learned to divide much more carefully. He had the description. He did not have the instrument. In 2009, someone built one. The final case file. You were never lazy.
There is a difference between not wanting to do something and not being able to want it at all. One is a preference, the other is a system failure. And we have been calling both of them laziness. Bug report number 5. You are not lazy. You are depleted. Let us open the file. Here is what actually happens inside your head when your brain runs out of resources. The cultural story says you are lazy because you lack discipline. Laziness is treated as a moral failure. You know what you should do. You are just too weak-willed to actually do the thing you know. It feels true. You are not doing the task. So the flaw must be located inside you somewhere. Hier sound is essentially brapsi kroomshire, incredible informationliche. But this explanation has a prediction problem. It cannot account for something that we all see happen. The most disciplined people should never be lazy. Athletes and workaholics should never burn out at all. They do, all the time. Championship athletes hit walls, founders collapse, monks abandon the vow. Which means laziness is not what we have been told it is. There is a different mechanism running. Research finds at least 3 distinct states we mislabel as laziness. They have completely different causes. State 1. Procrastination. This is emotion regulation, not discipline. Your brain misclassifies a task as a threat. You choose the relief of avoidance over the reward of completion. That is anxiety in a lazy costume. State 2. Depletion. Your energy systems are actually drained, not metaphorically drained, physically empty. Your glucose is low. Your sleep debt is real. Your nervous system is stuck in sympathetic overdrive. You are not choosing inaction. Your body is choosing it for you. Willpower cannot solve a glycemic crash. State 3. Anhedonia. This is the sneaky one. Your capacity to feel wanting has gone offline entirely. Not just I do not feel like it. It is I cannot feel like doing anything. Nothing has pull anymore. Your favorite food, meh. Your favorite person, meh. Accomplishing something huge, nothing. Everything is flat. Anhedonia shows up in depression, burnout, chronic stress, sleep deprivation, sometimes even vitamin D deficiency. The symptom looks identical from outside. You look inactive. But your reward system is offline. It is neurochemical. The clinical test is simple. Can you feel wanting anything at all right now? Even small things. Yes means procrastination or depletion. No means anhedonia. Different diagnosis, different treatment entirely. Patch 1. Run an energy audit, not a willpower audit. Stop asking, why am I so lazy? Start asking, where did my energy actually go? Map your sleep, food, stress, decisions, and social demand. Most people who think they are lazy are running a 24-hour deficit. You are not weak. You are empty. Patch 2. Test for anhedonia directly. Ask if anything actually has pull right now, not should, want. If nothing has pull, you are not lazy. You are depressed or burnt out, wearing a lazy costume. Patch 3. Separate I do not want to from I cannot want. Preference is fine. System failure is a signal. When the wanting system is broken, do the mechanical thing first. Sleep, sunlight, move, talk to someone. The strange part? Doing the mechanical thing first often makes the wanting come back. Causality flips backward. This episode opened with a specific distinction. Not wanting versus not being able to want it at all. If you recognized yourself in one of the 3 states, log which one in the comments below this video. Procrastination, depletion, or anhedonia. Which one are you actually running right now, this week? You are probably not lazy. You are probably running a system that is offline. Subscribe. Enroll in the study.
So, the ledger. He described things people recognize before there was any way to measure them. Sometimes the science found a narrower mechanism, sometimes only a resemblance, and sometimes his explanation did not survive at all. Introverted and extroverted attitudes. His distinction. Enormously influential. Modern personality science measures something related, and not the same. The persona. Conceptual parallels in how psychology now studies self-presentation. Not a lineage, a rhyme. Complexes and schemas. The same rhyme. The shadow. A framework. Some of its component processes are testable. The whole is not. Psychic energy, phenomenological overlap, and a mechanism modern science replaced entirely. The collective unconscious as inherited structure, not empirically established. Synchronicity as a causal principle, a hypothesis, not a finding. And here is the part the quotes never tell you. More often than the internet remembers, Jung called his biggest claims hypotheses, proposals, offered to be corrected. It was the internet that promoted them to scripture. That's the audit. This has been the human pattern. Enroll. And the next file opens itself.